Okay, so being a trader can really suck at times, especially if you're losing a lot of money.
See that another.
Anywhere you go, you belong. Anywhere you say, anywhere.
Okay, what you're saying, people, and welcome back to another live stream. Now, before we get into this today, make sure you join me on my Telegram. There's a link to that in the live chat and description below. Posting a lot of different trading setups there throughout the week, and you're missing out on that. But like I said, another live stream. I'm going to talk you through what's happening in the charts today and see what any opportunities we've got coming our way. So, hello guys, hope you're all doing well. Hello Rosa, hope you're doing well as well. Again, if you have any trades or if you want me to take a look at any different charts, just let me know, drop it in the chat below. I'll make sure I'll give you some analysis on those charts. But welcome to the live stream. So first we're going to start with AUD USD, see what's happening with this pair. So with AUD USD, we actually come to a really key level here in the market, 0.78, a key level there. If I just jump to the daily quickly, you can see how strong this level is. Markets tested it numerous times before in the past so weeks. Now, as you can see, every time we test it, we do see really nice rejection from this area, and we have tapped back into that area again. Hence why I think we're going to see another push to the downside for this pair, because again, it does have a lot of weight behind it, and we'll probably see a push to the downside from this area. So yeah, that could be why you could be short in that pair, because we are coming to that key level 0.78, seeing that nice area of price action in the 4H. Even the hourly was starting to look very good. As you can see, we had this push to the downside, slight lower high there, and then the continuation to the downside there as well. Probably broken through this trend line here in the market. Looks like we've had a retest in that area there, as you can see. Retest that same trend line and now continue to the downside. So AUD USD is looking quite bearish. We broke through the trend line, retested it, creating a lower high, and it looks like we are falling to the downside there for AUD USD. Potentially, as in for targets, again, we could be aiming for the bottom of that trend line, which is down here, which again is probably a little bit more courageous, but it could potentially happen. We've got this previous resistance here, which could cause AUD USD a little bit of struggle, a little bit of a bounce, potentially, because we have been pushing to the upside quite well throughout last Friday, coming into this week on Monday, and now Tuesday we are retracing that to the downside. So I don't think we're going to see price fall all the way to the downside, potentially back to this area here in the market. As you can see, key area of support there for AUD USD on hourly, tested it numerous times, failed to break it, and eventually gave us a nice push to the upside there, broke through that trend line. So again, you can look at it in targets really. So we've got the first one here, which is around 0.776,500, and then if we break through this area, there's a good chance that price is probably going to want to come and test down here, which is probably a good area to go and look for. But nonetheless, AUD USD is looking quite bearish, and looks like we're seeing a bit of retracement to the downside from there, all coming from that key daily area there in the market, 0.78. So that's probably why. USD JPY, I haven't taken a look at USD JPY in a while. Yeah, it does look like this one is pushing up. We've cleared some recent levels there in the market. So again, we've had this strong resistance here, as you can see, tapped into it a few times, 1, 2, 3, almost a fourth there. I've actually broken through that level now. Coming into this area though, so it might cause a bit of a struggle there coming into that resistance. As you can see, we had a bit of consolidation there before pushing to the downside not too long ago. So if you just take that across, looks like that is where the market's coming to. Break through that, however, we could go a lot further. If I jump to the 4H, you can see we've had this big push to the downside. I did say in my weekly analysis that USD might want to have a bit of retracement to the upside to go and retest this area here in the market here on the 4H. So again, you've got nice support, and actually this support gave us this big push to the upside all the way up to 111 practically on the dot. So we are coming back into that resistance. If USD does clear this, again, we could treat this whole price action here as one big false breakout of this level, and potentially could see USD push off much further to the upside. But again, important to see what happens in this area to see if we reject the downside or if we go up, because it could paint the picture of where USD could go for the rest of the week and the next few days. And again, if you're looking to swing the market, Again, could be set up potentially nice ideas to either look for shorts. Again, continuation to the downside if you fail to break through. Potential double top here. So I have to look at it from both point of views. So got that one there. Could be seeing another one there at that resistance, then the fall. Or potentially we could see price again, like I said, break back above, hold that as support and then continue. And again, this whole price action there was just one big false breakout of that support there in the market. So need to bear that in mind. But nonetheless, price right now for USJPY is looking bullish. Looking at that on the hourly, pushing to that area. So see what happens with price action there. And as you can see, we had that consolidation and that big drop from that area. So we are likely to see a bit of a bearish reaction from that level, but nonetheless, we are looking bullish. So see what happens in that area. And yeah, USD again does move very similar to Aud Usd, and you can see with this one we're having to push the downside as well. And actually very similar price action to Aud Usd. We had this trend line here in the market. Again, not as similar because with Aud Usd we broke below it, retested it, and then fell to the downside. Whereas this one a little bit messy, but we have broken through that trend line, and looks like we could be seeing a push to the downside for Aud Usd again. Similar to this one, we came to a very key level here on the 4 hourly time frame. So you can see here in the market, generally this whole area here, tested it a couple of times, and now we've pushed into it again. So likely to see a bit of retracement to the downside for Aud Usd and Aud Usd, both kind of hitting a strong level here on the 4H and the daily at the same time. And now we're seeing the reaction to that, and looks like we're getting a little bit bearish. So we're going to see a bit of retracement to the downside for Aud Usd. We've got this trend line here, this bullish trend line connecting these lows. Potentially could see Aud Usd push into that same area. So again, first test there, second could potentially see a third test coming all the way into that area. Then might see another reaction, or if we see a break, can see a bit of a reversal for Aud Usd, which has been on a bullish run for the past few days, couple of weeks now. Again, with that US dollar weakness we've seen all across the board, it's kind of helped it pushing to the upside. But it looks like we might be seeing a bit of USD strength coming into the market for the next couple of days or so, because it's been so weak. So naturally you do expect to see a bit of retracement coming into the market. However, long term I still believe US dollar is on its way down, but again, retracements happen in the market, and it looks like we could be seeing that retracement back into this trend line, potentially further. If it's a reversal, probably break through the trend line and then continue further. But nonetheless, we are looking bearish, tapping into that level. You can see there was our lower high there in the market, actually retesting this consolidation here. So had all of this consolidation, retested it, and then fell to the downside. So very textbook there, pushing to the downside for Aud Usd. And again, like I said, same with Aud Usd, also pushing to the downside. But this price action is a little bit more clearer for me, because we've got first target there and second target there if we do go and break through 0.77600. Looking at another USD pair, if we take a look at Euro USD, let's see what's happening with that pair. So again, looking bearish as well. Like I did say in my weekly analysis, price has been pushing to the upside for the past 3 weeks now. If you go and take a look at the weekly time frame, you can see we've had 3 very strong candles to the upside. So 1, 2, 3, breaking above a key level of resistance here in the market. So as you can see, key weekly resistance, broke below it, broke back above it, didn't really retest it. So that is still a possibility. We could come all the way down and retest it. But nonetheless, we are looking for a bit of retracement now after those 3 strong candles there on the weekly. Jumping back down to the daily, as you can see, we've had this big push, likely to see a deeper retracement, still hanging on to this resistance here in the market. So if I jump to the 4H, we'll make it a little bit more clearer. So again, you can see here, this is where we had a bit of retracement back to 1.21. Then after 1.21, we had this big meltdown to the downside. So now we're pushing back into that same area, and now we're seeing another reaction from 1.21. And as you can see, we are pushing to the downside. I believe we have a little bit of a trend line here in the market. So we'll try and connect it from down here, connect those lows there. So again, not the best drawn trend line, but it does connect the lows of some of these points here. So a bit more of a general trend line there, not really connecting the top of the wicks or the body. So a bit more of a general trend line. We're coming into that same area. If we can see that break, then potentially price could give us a deeper reaction to the downside and start to see a bit more of a retracement. But however, I still expect to see Euro USD, a lot of the other USD pairs keep pushing to the upside after this deeper retracement and then continue a lot further, because I do expect to still see that US dollar weakness coming to the markets there. But right now it looks like I'm going to see a bit of retracement here for Euro USD to the downside. Again, not sure how far it could go. Potentially this is our weekly zone, so if it was to tap into here, great place to look for buys if you are looking to swing the market, potentially back into this level and then maybe a lot further after that. But right now Euro USD is looking a little bit bearish there on the 4H and then the hourly again, but again it's not really showing too much conviction here, so might see another push up first. But overall we are still bearish right now for Euro USD. Looking at GPUSD, so for GPUSD, my weekly analysis, I said I wanted to see a move to the downside for this one to start the week off, and then potentially a bigger push to the upside. Because if I go to my daily chart, you can see potentially looks like we've had a double bottom here in the market. So there's the one test, there's the second test, broken through that previous neckline there in the market. Still treating this price action here, this bearish price action here, as a retrace, looking for the next continuation to the upside. Because again, it still looks like GPUSD is still bullish long term on the weekly, monthly charts. So this daily price action, just price building up for another big move either to the upside or to the downside. Right now my bias is to the upside, so I'm expecting all of this consolidation, this range to break out to the upside. Of course, I don't know when it will break, but if it does break, I'm expecting it to break to the upside. So for GPUSD, I did say I want to see a little bit more retracement to the downside for this pair. Again, we've got really nice support in this area. As you can see, you tested it once here, really nice reaction to the upside. Again here, nice reaction. False break there, now we're back above it, so I wanted to see another push into this area and then look to capitalize on the move to the upside for GPUSD. So that is what I'm expecting for GPUSD this week, or what I'm looking for anyway. What I'm looking for anyway for this pair. So looking to see if we can get that push to the upside. Again, looking for that one more push to the downside first. One more push to the downside first into this area, and expecting the reaction back up to 1.4, which is a key level for GPUSD, which price keep testing but failing to break through. So again, a break of 1.4 could probably kickstart the whole trend again to the upside if you were to break through that area. So as you can see, all this resistance here in the market, if you were to break through 1.4, probably kickstart the trend and see price come back all the way to these highs up there, which is what I'm favoring for GPUSD. But right now we are looking bearish here. If I go to the hourly time frame and look a bit more of the detailed price there, as you can see, we are looking bearish here. We've pushed up, we're failing to make higher highs now in the market. As you can see, there's one, now we're making a lower high there, and now we've made another lower high there in the market. So it looks like we are slowly rolling over to the downside now for GPUSD. Again, like I said, I want to see a move into this level here, which is around 1.38100, give or take, into this area, and then the bigger push to the upside, which I'll be looking to see if we can get some longs on. Of course, if the price just storms through this level, I might change my buy slightly, because at that point could see GPUSD take off a bit further to the downside, and again probably invalidate my long bias for this pair. But right now we are looking bearish, expecting to see a push to the downside back into this level here. For GPUSD, again, it would be nice to see a bit more retracement. Then maybe if you look to trade in the low time frames, could look to maybe capitalize on another push to the downside for GPUSD. If I scale down to the 30-minute, it might be a little bit clearer. So again, we do have this area of support here in the market, which could be a nice area to look to for a continuation to the downside, because we are getting those lower highs in the market. You see one up there, second, third, potentially a fourth, and then the continuation to the downside. I think we might have broken through this trend line here in the market. So again, first test here. So if I highlight that area again, first test here, had our second, And it looks like we just had our third and broken through it as well there. So again, it is showing signs that GPUSD wants to roll over to the downside here. Looking at all those tests of the trend line, breaking through the trend line, giving us those lower highs. So GPUSD looks like it is on its way to the downside to test this area. Then after that, could see a nice reaction to the upside. However, if we were to break back above this area, back above the trend line, then we probably need to take out this bearish trend line here, and then maybe I might change my bias to the upside after that. But right now, my bias is very much to the downside for GPUSD. So it does look like we might be getting a little bit of US dollar strength looking at the other USD pairs like Aud Usd, NZD USD, USD JPY. So it might be seeing a little bit of US dollar strength coming in. So could expect to see GPUSD fall to the downside a little bit and a bit of retracement to the downside. Looking at GBJPY, which does move similar to GPUSD. See, actually, this one will be moving in the opposite direction. GPUSD is being moved to the downside. However, this one's still staying to the upside. Very, very corrective price action, of course, but it is still pushing to the upside. Looking at the 4-hourly time frame, we've had this big impulsive move here, bit of accumulation there, and then we have this big push up, big push down, so a bit of a false move there in the market. Had that resistance. It looks like price is running out a little bit of energy here in the market, so might see a bit of retracement to the downside as well for GBJPY. Looking at that hourly time frame, looks like we're getting a bit of this bowl shape action, so price is kind of curving out. So I'll probably drop down to the 30-minute on GBJPY. You can see price is still making those higher highs there in the market, as you can see, pushing on here, creating a higher high, actually wicking above there as well, creating a higher high. So price is still creating those higher highs. However, it does look like we've made a lower low here, so could see price eventually roll over to the downside for GJ if we fail to make another higher high. So if this candle pushing on doesn't continue, fails, shows some nice bearish rejection, could actually roll over to the downside for GBJPY. It would be nice if price was to come tap into this level here around 157.50. As again, you can see really nice resistance here, fell to the downside. Again, resistance here, fell to the downside, resistance here, fell to the downside. So it would be nice if price was to tap there, but it does look like price is running out of steam for GBJPY and could actually roll over to the downside for this pair. So if anyone's looking to trade GBJPY, again, could be in for some shorts potentially if we fail to create some higher highs there in the market. So that to note. And again, GBJPY, GPUSD tend to move similar. And GPUSD, again, we are favoring a move to the downside again for that pair. And same thing for GBJPY. If we do fail to take out that resistance, could see a nice move to the downside. And actually, if we do take out that resistance, it's probably because price wants to come up and test this area here in the market, which is that key resistance on the H4. But right now, it does look like it's running out of energy and could see a nice push to the downside for that pair. Hi, how you doing? I hope everyone's doing well. Again, guys, if you want me to look at any different charts, any different pairs, just drop it down in the live chat and I'll make sure I'll give you some analysis on those pairs. And again, even if you're in any trades as well, let me know, see how they're getting on. No judgment here. Next, going to take a look at USD CAD. So for USD CAD, I'm actually in a short position for this one. Just before we had this push to the downside, I've got short on this pair around this area here in the market. I'll show you guys in my MT4 in a bit, but I was in a short, well, still am in the short for USD CAD, have taken some profit. I'm looking to see if we can get USD CAD to push all the way down to these lows here in the market. So again, looking at the higher time frames, like the daily and the weekly, you can see the market overall is very much in a bearish trend here in the market. You can see here, this whole price action here, price making lower lows, lower highs, lower lows, lower highs. And we were failing to break through this key level here in the market, 1.26 to 100, this key resistance. As you can see, test as support numerous times, failed to break through it, had a slight false break there, broke through it. Now we're testing at resistance. And then as you can see, we've had this, well, eventually had that bearish reaction to the downside for USD CAD there. So I'm looking to see if we can get price to push down to those lows. Again, we are not too far away, and maybe even slightly further, but not probably looking to hold this trade on forever. Just seeing if we can get to those lows, maybe slightly lower than that, just for price to keep up that structure. But right now, see if we can get that continuation to the downside, create some low lows there for USD CAD. Again, CAD does look like it's strong against all pairs, so that could help my trade out to the downside there. Euro AUD, yeah, I'll take a look at Euro AUD. Okay, so Euro AUD, I was looking at this pair not too long ago. Price is actually holding this trend line here in the market. If you exclude this false break here in the market on the 4H, so this area here, if you exclude that area, price is hanging on to this trend line here. So first, second, third, fourth, having our fifth test there right now in the market. But there is one thing to note with Euro AUD. You probably don't want to hold on to this trade for too long, because it does look like the market is slowly turning bearish, even though we've got this bullish trend line. Because as you can see here in the market, if I just circle this area, this is in the 4H by the way, we've got the high there, and it looks like price is failing to push on and to actually create a lower high there in the market. So that is indicating that this trend line is starting to tire out, starting to lose some energy, and we could actually be seeing a break of that trend line potentially soon. But again, price is looking very bullish. We're bouncing off that trend line. Probably nice if you did enter a bit earlier, to be fair, because again, you could probably capture a little bit more pips and not leave as much money on the table, because a nice entry would have been around here, looking for a move to the upside, but still treating this price action here in the market as a retracement. So all of this is retracement, so push to the upside, maybe to around this level here in the market where we've got that support, and then could see it move back down. So not really too feeling Euro AUD and Euro NZD buys for too long. But again, it does look like we've got some AUD weakness and NZD weakness in the market, so that could help the trade go a little bit further. But I personally prefer AUD USD and NZD USD rather than Euro AUD and Euro NZD at this moment in time. But again, could still be wrong, but for me, the move's already played out, so not really looking to capitalize on that move there. And again, I don't expect it to go too far, since it does look like we're making lower highs there in the market, which will be indicating that this bullish trend line here in the 4H could be running out of steam and seeing a break of that trend line soon. But again, that's just my opinion anyway. Yeah, sure, I'll take a look if you're in a Euro USD trade. Yeah, I'll take a look here if you want to post the URL for trading view for the trade. Yeah, I'll take a look at that if you want. But yeah, for Euro USD, like we were saying earlier, we came to a really key level here in the market on the 4H. We are tapping into this trend line, which again starts all the way from back here, so we are tapping back into the same trend line. Going to see a little bit of reaction at that area, but if we do see a break of that trend line, could actually see price really start to take off for Euro USD to the downside. Again, I don't expect it to be a huge move. I just expect it to be a retracement of what we've seen on the daily time frame. So looking at the daily, as you can see, price has been very bullish for quite some time now. Expecting to see a little bit more of a retracement before price kicks off again to the upside, because my bias is still very much to the upside long term for a lot of the USD pairs. Again, especially Euro USD, I do expect to see price back at these highs, again at 1.23, back at those highs again in not too long of time. So again, any move to the downside is just deeper retracement for Euro USD. So do keep that in mind at the back of your head. And if you are looking to swing the market, could be opening up for long-term swings. Yeah, I do occasionally trade gold, not as much as I normally trade the FX pairs, but yeah, I do trade gold. I do keep up with my analysis with gold as well. Actually, I'll take a look at gold now, to be fair. So gold was at a key level. Looking at my weekly analysis, price was at a really key level here on the daily actually, And if I just take this across here, key level of support, you can see support here, really nice reaction to the upside. Actually, you can see we came all the way up to 1950 from that same support, so it does have a lot of weight behind it. Smaller reaction here, broke to the downside, and now we're actually back above that area. So if gold wants to hang on to this area from a daily point of view, it could give price another kick to the upside. And the next area you'll be looking to target would be this resistance just above us here, around 1810. So keeping that in mind from the daily. I do believe we've got a bit of a trend line here on the H4. So again, we've got our first test here on the H4 back at around 1680. Then we've got our second test here in the market, which is around 1727, and now we're having a third test which does line up quite nicely with this support area here in the market. So if gold wants to hang on to this support from a Farley point of view, again, there's nothing stopping gold from pushing to the upside and actually going testing that 1810 level, which lines up with our daily quite nicely. So do have some multi time frame confluence, therefore move to the upside for gold. However, if gold does push below that trend line, pushes below that key support on the daily, could actually expect to see gold roll over to the downside and have a bit more retracement, because last week, well, 2 weeks ago now, I was expecting to see a bit more of a bearish reaction at this level because of daily. I was expecting to see a bit more of a bearish reaction. However, we just took off breaking through that level, and we didn't really see that after this big push. So price might want to roll over. I'm aware of that. If you do see a break of that trend line and then break underneath that, some shorts could open up. But right now we are resting on top of that support. We're resting on top of that trend line, showing a lot of wicks to the downside as well. So that is something to factor in. So it looks like we could be seeing a push to the upside for gold. Dropping down to the hourly, we do have this resistance here, which is causing a little bit of an issue for gold trying to break through. But I do think if we do clear this for gold, hold above it, and then we could be seeing a push to the upside, potentially at least back into this area here in the market where we saw a lot of that bearish momentum come down to. So could be opening up for longs again, looking at like higher time frames, bringing it right down to the hourly. It does show upside potential for gold, but again, it's probably not the best place to buy it right now, since we are stuck in a range. It's 50-50, price can break to the downside or to the upside. And we do have that resistance just above us here, which price has tested numerous times and it is still rejecting price. So although I'm expecting to see gold push to the upside, we do need to break above that, and then we could be seeing that continuation. Yeah, no problem. If you want me to look at any other pairs, just let me know. We'll take a nice look at them and see what they're doing. Going to take a look at GPNZD. Really looked at GPJPY. So GPNZD for this one, again, price has been looking quite bearish here on the daily. We have fallen to the downside quite nicely. GPNZD is starting to become a little bit interesting here because we could be seeing a bigger bearish trend coming into the market. We've got this trend line here on the daily. So again, looking at the higher time frames, and then I will dive deeper into the lower time frames. But looking at the higher time frames first, you can see here on the daily chart, price is respecting the trend line quite well. We've had numerous tests, so 1, 2, 3, had our fourth, and now it looks like we've actually had a close below that trend line not too long ago there on the daily, or actually yesterday. I don't want to say not too long ago, it was yesterday we had that close. So price is looking bearish here. Again, it's not nothing to take as gospel right now, because just one close below a trend line doesn't really always indicating that we're breaking through it. And again, you can see the current price action on the daily looks like it might even want to have a close above. So probably want to see another close below and show prices rejecting that trend line as resistance, and then we could actually be seeing a bigger push to the downside. But looking at the higher time frames, if I do jump to the weekly even, you can see price is overall in a bearish trend here in the market, and potentially we just had a double top with this resistance up here. And if that is what's happening here in the market, we've had this impulsive push to the downside, retracement, continuation, retracement, continuation. This price action looks very, very corrective, so potential retracement, and this bearish leg could be our continuation to the downside. And if that's the case, we do expect GPNZD to come back to these lows down here. So with that in mind, we could be seeing the start of a bearish trend here in the market. Right now, like I said, we do have that trend line on us right now, and price is pushing to the upside here on the 4H. We've pushed back into this area here in the market. You can see previous support, really nice reaction to the upside. We've slowly worked our way down and now test that same area. So I'm expecting to see a bit of a bullish reaction for GPNZD. If we can get below that, if we can get below this area, then price could actually kick off to the downside and start to see that bearish trend. Looking from the weekly, looking at the weekly time frame, we can start to see that bearish trend start from there. But right now it looks like we're holding on to it and might see a bit more of a bullish reaction. Dropping down to the hourly, if I just get rid of that daily trend line there. So dropping down to the hourly for GPNZD, we do have a little bit of a bearish trend here in the market. We can see those clear lower high formations and those lower lows. And if I connect this with a trend line here in the market, so you can see got a nice test there, one there, second there, third there. Didn't quite get a fourth, but overall we are in that bearish trend. And I think if we were to take out this bearish trend line, see a nice lower low formation, or higher low formation, sorry, and then we could actually expect to see a bigger push to the upside. And that just means that price was holding on to this key support here on the hourly time frame. So that to bear in mind. But obviously on the flip side, we could have the opposite happen. Price could push in, reject that trend line, push the downside, break through, and then we could probably see the start of that bearish trend line, looking at the higher time frames, back down in. So it is something to be aware of. But see what happens at that trend line, and then we could make potential buy or sell setups accordingly to see how we react, whether we break through or whether we hold at that trend line. Yeah, I'll take a look at USD/JPY. What time frames are you trading USD/JPY? Looking at the higher time frames, look at the lower time frames. Let me know so I can give you a little bit more in-depth analysis on that pair. But anyway, like I said earlier, for this one, we've come back to a key level here in the market for USD/JPY. You can see here, really nice area of support once, twice, and actually gave us this big move to the upside, back to 111 on the dot pretty much. Now we're back below it. We tested it as resistance once, as you can see here, really nice reaction to the downside, and now we're back at that same area again. So we are testing it for the second time. Like I said, this could either open up some really nice shorting opportunities or long opportunities for USD/JPY, because if you were to break it back above this area here on the 4 hourly, hold this as support, you could be seeing another continuation to the upside. And like I said before, all of this price action here was potentially just a big false breakout. So if I zoom out, you can see nice support, nice false breakout, then the continuation. Or on the flip side, if you take a look at the bearish setup, we've had a retest of this area once. We could be coming in for a second time. So that was our first, second, giving us a double top, and then we could be seeing a continuation to the downside for USD/JPY. So potentially either one of those could be happening, but the key thing to look for is price action in this area here of the market. See what happens here, looking at this from an hourly, 4 hourly point of view, looking how the candle closes, where the wicks are forming, and seeing what happens in that area, and see whether we are just going to storm through, break through, and then hold it as support, which again is another important thing to look. If we're holding back as support, then we can be seeing the continuation to the upside. Or if we're rejecting it, getting some nice strong bearish closes, some price action, then we could actually be seeing price fall to the downside again and just continue with this overall bearish trend that we've been seeing in the market for the past few days now. So important to see what happens at that area for USD/JPY. But again, if I just probably jump to the hourly, see what happened with price so far. Since we did take a look at this one earlier, but again, price is pulling back slightly, but again, nothing to take too seriously just yet. It's just one candle pulling back. It would be nice to see price push a little bit in further, have a bit more of a reaction up there, and then push to the downside. Then potentially could be seeing the start of a bearish trend here, well, the continuation of a bearish trend in the market. But right now, price is pulling back a little bit, showing that it is rejecting that area. But you do expect to see some rejection. Again, maybe a nice break of that trend line as well, looking for those confirmations. If we do reject that area, push through, nice lower high, maybe head and shoulders, back at that same area, and then see the dump to the downside. Or if we break above, looking for those retests and the continuation up higher. So again, staying on your toes, being ready for whatever the market throws at you, and not taking your buys too much as gospel, and being able to change there. So important aspect to learn when trading the FX markets there. But yeah, seeing potentially what happens with this level, you can really see we are pulling back down quite nicely on the 30-minute hourly, again pulling back as well. So it is already showing some rejection. You can see last time we were here, we were consolidating for a few candles before having this big strong bearish push to the downside. So obviously there is a lot of weight behind this level. We do expect to see some bearish reaction, but if price wants to break through, they could still do that. We haven't really had too many confirmations yet that price is holding at that level. Okay, so next going to take a look at Eurogbp. So Eurogbp, this pair, again, I know a lot of people not really much of a fan of trading it, but sometimes I do see some quite nice setups when trading Eurogbp. Right now, it's at this resistance around 0.87. It's having a tough time breaking through it. However, I do still think price will break through this level. For Eurogbp, I still see a further upside potential. Again, you can see why it's having such a tough time, because if I do take this support along, as you can see, big reaction to the upside from this support. But I do take this along, that's kind of where price is trading right now. Actually, to be fair, it looks like price might be sitting on it as well. So that might be the start of something actually. So I did not notice that before. So potentially you could actually see Eurogbp kick off to the upside actually. If this is price sitting on that level, again, is a bit subjective. Some people might draw their resistance and support lines differently, but the way I've drawn it, looks like price is sitting on top of that. So again, price action right now is still a little bit bearish, so potentially could see another push to the downside for Eurogbp. So one more push maybe, because it does look like price is very corrective here, having a tough time pushing to the upside. You can see all those bearish candles coming in, low wicks there. So it looks like we might have one more push to the downside, and then if we do show more rejection, could look to see a bigger push to the upside. Yeah, Rosa, I am feeling that Eurogbp has good potential turning bullish actually. So if we are sitting on this level, could potentially be looking for setups around here, maybe a little bit better on the 4H. But yeah, setups around there, looking for the continuation. Because again, looking at the higher time frames, I know a lot of people don't really look at them. They mainly just stay on the lower time frames, but they do paint a picture, or help paint a picture of the higher time frames. And you can see on the week, we've had this strong engulfing candle there, slight retracement candle there the second week, and this week here, last week, we had this hammer candle with a nice wick to the downside, pulling up, closing bullish, and minimal wick to the upside. So I do still feel like we're going to push to the upside now for Eurogbp, and as you can see, the market is very, very overextended as well, so we're likely to see a bit more retracement to the upside. So yeah, I am favoring Eurogbp to turn bullish. Again, it would be nice to see the market hold this area, and if it does, that could open some nice swings to the upside. And like I did say on my weekly analysis, for you guys that watch my weekly analysis of videos as well, if you haven't, again, it's on my channel, make sure you go do that. But we do have this key level here on the 4H that price probably wants to go and test. So we had this triple top, 1, 2, 3, before diving to the downside, and as you can see, we haven't really come and retested that area. So I do think price is probably want to go and test that area. Taking that across, lines up with around 0.7900, and if you do hold this area, could actually see a nice swing all the way up to that area. So for those people who like taking some swings in the market, which is normally how I trade, I like trading swing trading rather than day trading or scalping, could be some nice setups there, some good risk to reward as well. So eyes on Eurogbp, potentially take them off to the upside. But again, the market is slightly overextended here in the market, so we might see a bit of a deeper retracement first. Again, just giving us a better risk to reward basically if it does that, but we could see a deeper retracement first before the kick. but again, still favoring a bigger push to the upside for Eurogbp. Thanks, Jay. Love that from you, man. Yeah, I do try and make sure that I give the best analysis possible on those weekly analysis videos there. Try and make sure you guys are up to date with those pairs. So thanks again for watching it. Means a lot. Okay, so next I'm going to take a look at EuroJPY. So EuroJPY, again, this pair has been, don't know what it's been doing, to be fair. It's been moving sideways. It looks like it's going to break to the upside at one point. It looks like it's going to break to the downside at one point. Yeah, it's built all over the place. I haven't traded it in a long time, and you can see why I haven't traded in a long time, because EuroJPY is just kind of moving sideways. A very unclear market here. It does look like we might be seeing a break to the upside, but I'm not too convinced, because we did see a nice break of this trend line here. So again, that was obviously our false breakout there. This is the full H, by the way. That was our false breakout there. Now we're back above it again. We're seeing a lot of wick rejections here in the market, so we are tiring. Might see a push, but I think if we start holding this area here, that could be what gives us the break to the upside, because that's what's going to mean that we're creating higher lows in the market. As you can see, we're pushing to the downside, making lower lows, lower lows, lower lows. Although we were keeping this as support, you can see by looking at those wicks, we're making lower lows, lower lows, lower lows, coming into that area. Seeing nice impulsive push, breaking past this area here in the market, that trend line and that previous high, so indicating that we're creating some new highs in the market. We've recently created this low here, this support, and if we fail to break through that low again, that could be the sign that price is wanting to push to the upside, because not only are we holding that support, we're also holding that trend line. We've created a new high past that area, and then I will favor a breakout to the upside and could be looking for buys in this area and potentially targeting at least those highs up here. But favorably, probably a bigger move than that, because all price is doing right now is just building up, and see if we're gonna have a big explosive breakout to the upside or a big explosive breakout to the downside. I know EuroJPY is a little bit overextended to the upside looking at the higher time frames. So if I go to the daily, the weekly, you can see we are quite overextended to the upside, so people could be expecting to see a nice breakout to the downside because of that. But again, the trend is still very much to the upside. Price is still making higher highs, higher lows on the higher time frames. So again, I'm going to maintain that bias looking at this time frame here and expecting to see a breakout to the upside. However, I will change my mind or start to think about changing my mind if we do break back below this trend line and break back below that support and actually give some impulsive candles to the downside. And at that point, yeah, price is just at the thick of it, just moving sideways again. But I think potentially EuroJPY could want to break to the upside if we do hold this area. Again, very important area I will have my eye on for EuroJPY actually, so could be looking to trade it soon. But overall, the price action is still very messy here. You can see there's wick rejection, so price is running out of steam. If I drop to the hourly time frame, you can see we are consolidating there again. So yeah, EuroJPY is just a little bit all over the place, not the best pair to trade, but could be having some clarity soon, depending on what the market does in that area. So we'll have my eye on that for EuroJPY. Next, going to drop to CAD-JPY. So CAD-JPY, we actually had an explosive break to the upside. This week I was favoring for CAD-JPY to roll over. However, as you can see, we had that explosive breaking through this area here in the market. And as you can see, price is looking very bullish here. So I think potentially we've had a false breakout of this area here. So this was our recent swing low, as you can see in the market. Push to the upside, creating a low. Push to the upside, creating a new low. Push to the upside, new high. Break below that swing low, again tricking people, having people opening those shorts. Looks like we broke back above, retested it, and now had a big kick to the upside. So potentially could see price coming all the way back to these highs here again in the market. Looking at the hourly time frame, you can see we are starting to run out of steam. So the likelihood is we're going to see a bit of retracement to the downside first. Again, a really nice area here to look for buys, or a potential area to look for sells as well. Not area to look for sells, but could look to sell to that level is what I meant. So potentially, because we're running our steam here, if you are looking to trade CAD JPY, potentially could be looking for those sales back into that level. Since you can see when we did have that explosive break, we did not get any retest of that level. So if we do break out this consolidation to the downside, it could potentially mean that prices want to have a bit of retracement, and this is the logical place where you do probably expect price to come and tap into before having that kick to the upside, which is around 86,600. So could be seeing that push to the downside for CAD JPY. Of course, if you do break out that consolidation to the downside, break to the upside probably just means we're having another continuation. At that point, CAD JPY is probably on its way back up the highs and potentially even a higher high. Because again, it does look like JPY across the board long term could still be weak. So we could still see GBJPY go up, Eurogjpy go up, CAD JPY go up, AUD JPY, NZD JPY. Potentially all those pairs could go up. USD JPY is a little bit different because USD and JPY again have well, they're quite similar in terms of strength, so it's a lot they move a little bit different to the other JPY pairs. So a lot more consolidation, similar to like Eurogbp or AUD but yeah, so potentially could see price back at these highs again if that's a false breakout, potentially back at those highs. So that to note again, if you're looking for those swings, potential swing opportunity to the upside. Obviously I wouldn't take a swing now of CAD JPY since of where we are in the market. Doesn't really make too much sense here, but potentially could be opening up big swings in the market for CAD JPY soon come. So again, like I said, I am in shorts for USD CAD, looking for a move to the downside. Well, we've already had that move to the downside, looking to see if that move to the downside can continue a little bit further. Again, we had this wick all the way down here, which was our previous swing low in the market. You can see we had that key level 1.26200. Prices test that numerous times. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times before eventually collapsing to the downside. So since we were failing to break through that, my bias was to the downside. Again, in my weekly analysis, I did say we do expect to see a nice dump to the downside for USD CAD. And then when we saw price starting to break through this area here in the market, and that's when I started to favor the push to the downside. And as you can see, we did get that really nice drop there for USD CAD. So I'm still holding on to my position. I've already taken some shorts in the market, some profit in the market. Again, I haven't got my full risk on. Looking for price to test that level, which is around 1.23651, which is the right bottom of USD CAD, and I'm expecting to see a lower low because again, just following that overall structure of price, lower lows, lower highs, lower lows, lower highs, looking at the higher time frames. So yeah, I'm favoring USD CAD to continue to the downside, at least one more push. You can see the price action here, we're having a hard time pushing up, so that might mean a nice break of this counter trend line here in the market. As you can see, lining up those wicks could leave for us for having another push to the downside, tapping into those lows there, and then maybe after that we might see USD CAD push onto the upside after that. But nonetheless, expecting to see another push to the downside for USD CAD, seeing if we can get price push into those levels. Again, GPUSD, we were looking at that one earlier, and it looks like that one is actually pushing back up here. I was saying if you can hold this trend line, hold that area, you might see another continuation to the downside, but we are starting to push back up for GPUSD. So again, going to be patient for GPUSD, sit on the sidelines a little bit, see if we can get a bit more clarity here. Like I did say, we are getting these lower highs in the market, so that could be a sign that price wants to roll over to the downside. And if it does, again, like I said, looking at this area here around 1.38, 100, 150, give or take that area there. If you do hold that area, could be seeing a nice continuation to the upside for GPUSD if we do hold that area. Again, if anyone's looking to trade GPUSD, just let me know. I could be looking for potential sell or buy setups there, but right now need a bit more clarity. Now for GPUSD. I think we were looking at Aud Usd earlier, again still looking quite bearish here. Looks like we're still pushing into this area. Again, that is where I do expect price to push into for Aud Usd, and then after that might see a bit more of a bullish reaction. If we hold that area, if we hold this area, might see a little bit more of a bullish reaction. But of course, like I said before, if you do get underneath it, could be looking for those shorts for another continuation back into this level down there. Yeah, take a look at GBCHF right now. So yeah, again, sometimes fundamentals don't always line up with technicals, but it's good to kind of maybe combine them together. So again, if you have a bias, so bullish on GBP fundamentally, always bring that into the charts and then see what the charts are saying. If the charts are saying you bearish, then it's probably not the best time to trade that. But if they do line up, so if you have a bullish bias on GBP, come into the charts and you're seeing a lot of bullishness for GBP, then that's a nice place, a nice time to go and trade, because you've got that fundamental and technical confluence together. So when they're opposing, maybe it's time to stay out of the markets, or simply just trade your technicals with a little bit less risk on the table, because it doesn't line up like you said fundamentally. But yeah, looking at GBCHF, price is having a hard time breaking through this key area here in the market. You can see test it 1, 2, 3, 4. So it is showing signs that price wants to push to the downside. And as you can see here, if we zoom in on the hourly, we've actually just slightly made a new low past this area. So drawing that line across, again, it's not a close below, but when price still wicks below that previous low, it's still counted as a new low. And same thing when price is pushing up a new high. So we have wick below, so price is showing some intention to the downside, causing those new lows there. Again, very impulsive move, so I like to see a bit of retracement. But looking at this from a technical aspect, it looks like price wants to push to the downside. We've broken through this trend line here, connecting those previous swing lows. So 1, 2, 3. So I actually have, looking at this from technical aspects, a bias to the downside for GBCHF. Maybe another retest of that trend line and then push to the downside, because we've had such a hard time trying to break through that resistance. However, if price was to come back up, say we to see some strength from the GBP and break back up and then hold this as support, and then yeah, that'll be a nice place to look for buys, because again, you can see rejection so many times. So if you were to break above that, hold it as support, it is a good indication that price is wanting to have a bit more of a reversal. And then you could line up your fundamentals there with GBCHF there and looking for a push to the upside. I think we have had a break of this trend line here, but it looks like we're breaking straight back into it. So yeah, so if you were to break above that area, we'll probably have a nice strong break above that trend line and a break above that. So that could potentially be your buy setup there. But looking at this from a technical aspect, it is looking very bearish here for GBCHF. If I was to drop onto the 4H time frame, you can see we had this big sell-off to the downside here for GBCHF, and it looks like we've just had a flip of this support to resistance. So if I just draw this in, you can see nice area of support here in the market, once, twice, now resistance, and again resistance here as well. So price has just flipped that area. It looks like it's respected it quite nicely, and looks like we're getting some continuation to the downside for GBCHF here. So looking at this from a technical aspect on the 4H, it looks like price is probably wanting to have another push back into this area here in the market, back into this support around 1.26400, break through that, and then it could be mean price actually wants to come back to this support all the way down here, which is just slightly below that support there in the market. So again, from a technical aspect, we are looking quite bearish here, just like you said, and looks like we are pushing to the downside for GBCHF. So only looking for sells for this pair unless we were to get back above this area here in the market. Unless we were to get back above this area here in the market, then that'll probably be a nice area to look for buys. But right now, GBCHF is looking quite bearish. You can see the current candle is even pushing down to the downside there as well. So yeah, expecting to see a push to the downside for GBCHF. Basing those on the technicals there. And like I said, looking at the other pairs like GPUSD as well, is turning a little bit bearish here. Again, you see having a bit more of a hard time moving to the downside than GBCHF. So clearly CHF is much stronger. than USD. So again, having a hard time closing back above that area. So again, GBUSD price action overall is very corrective, very choppy. So again, for me, it's not the best time to look to trade GBUSD. When we had the price action here from 1.4, much clearer to see that move to the downside, but here it's having a hard time moving to the downside and to the upside. So need a bit more clarity there with GBUSD. GBJPY, again, like I said, if you were to fail to make a higher high, so basically we hold onto that resistance, maybe we see a triple top, I think GJ has a good potential of rolling to the downside here. As you can see, we had that new low there in the market, so potentially could roll to the downside there for GBJPY, so be aware of that. If we were to break through that resistance, however, it probably means that price wants to come into that 4-hourly key level just above us. As you can see, resistance there, resistance there, resistance there. So there's nothing stopping price pushing up, having another test of that area before falling to the downside. But overall, I'm favoring a move to the downside for GBJPY if we fail to break. If we do fail to break through that level. If we do, probably means price is going to have another push to the upside, back into the resistance up there. So what pairs are people looking to trade this morning? People looking to trade the USD pairs, GBP pairs, let me know. Take a look at them, see how they're getting on. Again, like I said, I'm currently in short for USD CAD, looking for a move to the downside for this pair. Again, seeing if we can get a push back into those lows. Price kind of just having that retracement right now. So again, nothing too much going on now for USD CAD. Break of that trend line could give us another kick to the downside. Although again, it potentially could be a bottom. So is something else to factor in. If this is a bottom, it could potentially push back up again. At that point, I don't want to be sitting in the trade as prices pushing to the upside. So again, won't want to be sitting in that. Again, my entry is somewhere around here. Stop loss just above those highs there, looking for a move to the downside. So my trade looks something like that. Actually, if I do move this to MT4, again, this is my MT4 here in the market. I just moved to USD CAD, so as you can see, there's my position there in the market. So again, short from around there on the hourly time frame, looking for a move to the downside. So still hanging on to that position, already taking some profit off the table, but gonna see how that gets on. But again, main focus is to see if we can get that second push to the downside for USD CAD. But I'm aware if we do push to the upside, that probably want to exit that trade. But again, I think the main driver for this is the CAD strength that we're seeing in the markets. Again, GB CAD was a pair that I was looking to trade this week. Again, if you're looking at my weekly analysis videos, I was looking to get involved in GB CAD shorts, but again, it kind of just took off to the downside there. So it was kind of hard to get involved in this one. I was looking for a bigger push to the upside first. As you can see here, really nice resistance going through the market there. See if we can get a bit of retracement to the upside first and then get the sell off to the downside. But again, you can see price is already very bearish there, and we didn't really get much of retracement there in the market. Again, looking at this pair from a daily point of view, you can see I was waiting for that bit of a head and shoulders kind of retest sort of formation there. So we had nice resistance there, big break, false breakout turns out, looking for the retest there. So creating that kind of head and shoulders kind of setup there. So the shoulder, the head, shoulder, and then the continuation to the downside. But as you can see, price kind of gave us that drop before. Of course, there is still a possibility of price pushing up to pushing back to the upside again, retesting that area and then giving us the kick to the downside. So I'm still going to wait for that setup to see if it comes. But if price does end up and actually clear, if I drop the 4H, if price does end up clearing through this support around 1.72, I believe, if price does end up clearing through that, then I'll probably consider the setup a little bit invalid, and that means that prices just went without me. Now we're going to see that continuation to the downside. I think next target after that is probably 1.7 all the way down here after that big false breakout there in the market for GB CAD. So Bias is to the downside for this pair. Again, but it would be nice to see a bit of a reaction to the upside first. Again, we're coming back into that same support, 1.72, support there, 1, 2, 3, coming into it again. Likely are going to see a bit of a bullish reaction. Not sure how far it go. If it was to go up there, that'll be a really nice trade there. Not really looking to capitalize on that though, because my bias is to the downside, so you could actually see a break of that and the continuation. But if you were to see a push to the upside there, again looking for those sells for a move lower. So that is what I'm looking for. GBP again, I'm a swing trader. I do like to capitalize on those swings in the market, so I have to be a little bit more patient with my setups, and I don't take as many trades as well, so need to stay on my hands a little bit more. But right now GBCAD's coming to that support, and we are likely to see a bit of a bullish reaction there. But as you can see, GBCHF is a little bit different, as price has been looking quite bearish for this one, so that might mean that we have some CHF strength in the market. If you take a look at USD CHF, as you can see there, yeah, for USD CHF we are kicking off to the downside there as well. We do have this counter trend line here in the market, so yeah, first, second, and then it looks like we are breaking through that trend line there. So if we are, that might mean that price wants to have another push to the downside here for USDCHF. Again, US dollar has been weak over the past few days. You can see for USDCHF we start to sell off from here, and we just really haven't stopped. We've been seeing those nice pullbacks, but overall price has been looking very bearish here. Yeah, I'll take a look at gold in a second. So yeah, it looks like we're breaking through this support here in the market. So again, 1, 2, 3, had that triple bottom, nice push to the upside, broke below. I did say again on my weekly analysis, if you do hold this as resistance, probably see a continuation to the downside. And as you can see, we are still falling to the downside. We are losing a bit of steam, but overall, I still think USDCHF is on its way down to this kind of key area here in the market. As you can see, acting as support numerous times here on the daily. Support, support, support in the market. Act as resistance, and I do feel like price is going to come and use it as support there again. So bias is to the downside for USDCHF. Again, looking at the markets there on the hourly, the 4 hourly, we are still looking quite bearish here. So again, still favoring that drop to the downside. Still pips to capitalize on, around 70 pips. So there is room to capitalize onto the downside there, and a break of that trend line could give us another kick to the downside for this pair. So yeah, if I take a look at gold now. Okay, so gold, like I was saying earlier, for this pair, again we had this key level here on the daily. So if I just jump to the daily quickly just to show you. So yeah, really nice key level here. As you can see, support, support, nice bullish reactions in the market. As you can see, gave us this big kick to the upside there for gold. And then you can see we're actually above that same level again. So that might mean that we're going to have another kick to the upside for gold if we do hang on to that level. As you can see, numerous wicks to the downside. Then I also factored in this trend line here on the 4H. So again, the first test back here, second test there, and now we're having that third. We've had multiple tests actually, because we've wicked into this level numerous times. And as you can see, we are still holding that area of support and that trend line. So if that is the case, I do favor a push to the upside for gold back into this area here. So if you break above this, this is kind of like our last barrier. If you break above that, look for the retest and the continuation back into there. If we do clear these highs here in the market, and I think the next stop is 1810, which is that nice daily area that we test, well, not tested, but pull back into before collapsing to the downside. So I think we could feel that range to the upside if we do maintain respect for that area. So bias is to the upside for gold. Again, if you were to get underneath that trend line, get underneath that support, I'll probably change my bias and see a bigger move to the downside. But right now, looking at the price action, you can see we are holding that area. So if you were to break through, retest, then it could be a nice area to look for those buys back into around 1790, which is this resistance here. And if you were to continue all the way up to 1810 potentially. So that is my bias behind gold, as long as we maintain respect to that support and that trend line, and I hope that analysis helped. Yeah, sure, I'll take a look at the DXY. So DXY, I'll look at that on daily first. So again, you can see this pair, we've been falling to the downside for I don't know how many days now. Price has been looking very bearish here, pushing to the downside. Again, we did have a price break above, then break back below this key support here in the market. So as you can see, support there, kind of held this consolidation here in the market. We broke above, and then back then I was thinking if price was to hold this as support, you could see that continuation to the upside and really see the DXY take off. However, as you can see, we broke to the downside and actually held it as resistance. So if I zoom in here in the market, so as you can see, we actually broke to the downside, held that same area as resistance, and then we fell to the downside. So price right now is looking very bearish here for the DXY. We do have this trend line here in the market. So again, first, second, now having that third test. So like I said, we might see a bit of DXY strength, so US dollar strength for the next couple of days or so, if we were having a bounce of this trend line to the upside, and since we had this big bearish run to the downside, so it is likely we'll have to see a bit more of a bullish reaction for the DXY. However, long term I'm still very much to the downside. I still believe DXY is going down to 88.500. So again, that's more long term, but we are likely to have a bit of a bullish reaction. Could potentially even come back to retest that area there, but we are likely to have a bit of a bullish reaction and then see the break to the downside for the DXY. So long term, again, very much to the downside. That's why I'm still expecting Euro USD to continue all the way back up to those highs at around 1.23. But we are likely to see retracement, because again, that's just how the markets move. Push to the upside or to the downside, retrace, continue, retrace, continue. So again, favoring a bit of a deeper retracement, since it's been a long time since we've had that deeper retracement. And we are coming into this trend line here. So expecting a little bit of a bounce. Again, we do have this key level here on the daily, so we've got resistance there, support there. Could see a bit of a reaction back into that same area. Drop to the 4H, so could see a bit of a reaction back into the same area. See really nice resistance, support there, support there. Already tapped into it twice, but potentially could pull back into it for a third time, because now it's the first time we're testing that trend line. So could push back into that area and then see the collapse to the downside. But you can see, if I take a look at a more short-term scale, hourly, we are having this pullback here, very corrective with this trend line here. So if you were to break through this counter trend line here in the market, it might mean we're gonna have another push to the downside and see price create some new lows there. So looking at the immediate price action, we are looking very bearish here. Long-term price action, overall expecting a collapse to the downside, but might see a bit of retracement first. So looking at the kind of three kind of long-term, short-term, mid-term sort of periods, hourly looks like we might see another push to the downside, but it would be nice if price was to push here first and then give us the move. But because we're getting so corrective price action, price is kind of just resting on that trend line, it looks like we'll probably just see a nice kick to the downside there for the DXY, if of course we break through that counter trend line to the downside. So yeah, I hope that analysis helped on the DXY. Again, like I said, currently in this USD CAD trade, so you can get a move to the downside. Again, probably need to see a break of that trend line first. But if we do, expecting price to come back to those lows and potentially see some lower lows there in the market. Again, if anyone else wants me to take a look at any different charts, any different markets, just put it in the live chat and I'll make sure to give you some analysis on those pairs, guys. Or if you're in any trades as well, feel free to share. No judgments here. If it's losing or winning, we all take losers and we all take winners, so no judgment here. But if you want to share the trade, maybe get some feedback, see how they're doing, feel free to share your trades as well. Like I said, just going to see how USD CAD gets on and see if you can get a move to the downside down there.
Anywhere you go, you belong. Anywhere you say, anywhere.
Okay, so we're going to take a look at GBP/JPY. So with this pair, it looks like we're actually breaking through that key level there in the market, that previous resistance that we're testing a few times down the 30-minute. I can see we're failing to break through that level. We did see a lower low below there. So I was saying if you're failing to make another higher high, it could mean that GBP/JPY is going to roll over. However, it does look like we are breaking through that level. Again, we've got about a minute left before this 30-minute candle closes. So it does look like we're going to get a break above, a strong close above. So with that said, I did say if you do break through that, there's a good possibility we'll push onto this H4 area here in the market. So again, if I jump to the H4, you can see we've got this nice resistance here in the market. Test it once here, second there, had that big false breakout there in the market. Test it again for a third time, and now potentially could be getting a fourth test and then a reaction to the downside. Yeah, not sure how big the reaction will be or if we'll have a breakout, but I think that's where GBP/JPY is headed to go and test that area there in the market around 150-700. So that 4-hourly resistance there in the market could be the place that GBP/JPY is on its way to go and test. With that break, so maybe again if you look at trade the lower markets, could be waiting for the retest of that area, looking to test that move there in the market. So that could be potential setup there. Again, not really looking to take that myself, but could be an idea there in the market because it does look like we're having that breakout. Yeah, we'll take a look at USD/JPY right now. So USD/JPY, we've had a bit of a bearish reaction from that level. Like I did say on the higher time frames, if you do hold this level here, as you can see, we tapped into it once. Nice bearish reaction to the downside, very, very strong. So if you do tap into that same level again, and we see that rejection, could potentially give us a double top for a bigger move to the downside. Or on the flip side, if you were to break above, then potentially could start a bigger move to the upside, and this price action here was one big false breakout. So again, staying on toes there, knowing that we could be having a move to the upside or to the downside depending on how we interact with that same level. Right now we are showing some rejection. You can see we've tapped into it a couple of times, are seeing those bearish candles coming through on the hourly, on the 30 minutes. But again, like I said, it would be nice to see if we can get a break of this trend line here in the market, connecting those lows, but we include that point there as well. Nice to see a break of this trend line, and then looking for those lower highs, looking for the continuation to the downside. So that will probably be the best outcome, similar to the setup we had on Aud USD on the hourly. As you can see, we had a break of this trend line here in the market, connecting those lows, had a nice break of the trend line, retested it on this area here, and then we had the collapse. So it'd be similar sort of technical aspect you're looking for USD/JPY. If you were to break through this same area, come back, show us that we're failing to break through, and see the bigger move to the downside. And of course that means we are rejecting this resistance here in the market. So that could be what was happening for USD/JPY, us rejecting that, looking at the continuation to the downside. But like I did say, it would be nice to see one more push to the upside, show some more rejection through there, and then come down and break it, and then we could be seeing that bigger move to the downside. So looking for one more test, but of course a break of that trend line could happen at any moment. And with that said, could get a nice break there and then the continuation to the downside. So need to be aware of that as well. But for me, I'm favoring one more push and then the break to the downside for USD/JPY. And as you can see, we are showing some signs that we are holding onto that trend line there. As you can see, slight bullish reaction. If I drop to the 15-minute, you can see we had that hammer candlestick there, candlestick pattern. So it could be seeing another push to the upside. But as you can see, we're starting to see these impulsive bearish legs to the downside on the 15-minute. Very impulsive push, not as impulsive, but longer bearish push. So it does look like we're running out of steam and could be seeing a push to the downside. But like I said, just one more push to the upside, showing some more rejection, taking out these highs as well, and then seeing the push to the downside for USD/JPY. So that is what I'm favoring, looking at the price action we're getting right now. More rejection and then a dump to the downside. But of course, if we do have another push to the upside and actually price decides it wants to break through, storms through, then we could be looking for the opposite, looking for those buys holding at this resistance now turn support, then looking for the continuation up. So two possible setups there, probably favoring the bearish setup now because looking at how price is rejecting for it. But yeah, could be seeing a bigger push to the downside for USD/JPY. So hope that analysis helped on that pair. Yeah, I'll take a look at Euro/JPY. Okay, so Euro/JPY looks like it might be pushing to the upside here on the 15-30 minute. I mean, it hasn't had a clear breakthrough, I would say. It's had a nice close above, no wick to the upside, so is showing some bullish intention there. But again, the whole price action here is very, very corrective, and I probably wouldn't say it's probably not the best trade to take, just because of the price action is very, very choppy. So yeah, like I did say, looking at the hourly or the 4-hourly time frame, it'd be nice to see a bit of retracement back into this area here in the market, showing me that it's holding this level, holding that higher low, holding that trend line on the 4H. So as you can see, you've got a nice trend line coming through the market there, show that it's holding that, and then we could be seeing that continuation back into those highs and potentially even a higher high. And as you see, a break of this overall consolidation to the upside, and after that we could actually see price really take off to the upside for Euro/JPY if we do have that successful break and retest of that trend line and the takeout of those highs there. So Euro/JPY, like I did say earlier, I am favoring price to break to the downside, but I do want to see one more push to the down, a break to the upside, sorry, but I do want to see one more push to the downside, showing me that it's holding this higher low here, showing me that it's holding that trend line, and then potentially could look for those breakouts to the upside and a really nice swing. On the hourly, we do have consolidation there. It looks like it might be poking its head above, but of course we still got another 25 minutes before that candle closes. But if you do see a breakout, again, the logical place you do expect price to come to is that resistance here in the market, our recent swing high, and it does look like price might want to be breaking to the upside without that retracement. And if that's the case, again, not really looking to enter myself. Again, I'm not really seeing too many possible entries or good setups to look for longs anyway, unless you're a breakout trader and you're going to buy a breakout. And potentially that could be the case, looking at those highs there, filling in the gap, filling in the range. But for me, looking for the retracement first back into this area and then the continuation. Not really too interested in the price action here, just because it's very, very choppy, a little bit all over the place. Even looking at the 15 minute, there's really no not much indication for me to get involved there for Euro/JPY. Very, very messy price action. I pretty much use kind of swing trading from level to level. I pretty much use just key levels, using it for multi time frame analysis. So looking at the weekly all the way down to the hourly, looking at the key levels in the market, see how they interact, and just kind of just trading using the structure of the market from key level to key level basically. So if the market's in the uptrend, looking for those buys on those lower highs, expecting lower lows, sorry, expecting to see another push to the upside, or again vice versa to the downside. So again, it's nothing too exciting really. It's just following the structure of the market, mapping out where my key levels are, and just trading from one key level to another. Basically, that's just basically in a nutshell how I trade and how I look to analyze the pairs on the screen right now. So again, we've got the key level here, seeing what happens there. If it holds it, looking to buy. If it doesn't hold it, probably means it's coming down to this next key level, and if you break through that, we could be having a reversal and potentially see price coming all the way back down to here. So just simple, using the key levels, following structure, and seeing how the market wants to flow itself, and just adapting accordingly to that, not having too much of a strict bias, and just letting the market do what it wants, and kind of just trying to follow that that price action that it gives me for UJ price. So that's basically in a nutshell how I look to trade the market. And how do you trade as well, Rose? Do you use is it smart money concepts or institutional trading, or do you trade patterns, pullbacks? Let me know. How do you trade the markets? It'd be interesting to know. Again, GJ still looking like it's pushing to the upside back into that 4-hourly resistance. Again, like I said, clearing that resistance there in the market. So actually a really a good job clearing that resistance. As you can see, broke to the upside and now it's continuing to the upside. So again, breakout to the upside back into that 4-hourly range. It looks like it's going to fill that range back into that same area. Again, expecting to see a bit of a bearish reaction coming into that area because again, it does have a lot of weight behind it. But nonetheless, price is looking bullish. So we'll see what happens out there, but it does look like price is on its way to go and test that 4-hourly level there in the market that I just drew out. So GJ coming into some resistance, might see a bit of a bearish reaction, but overall we are still looking very, very bullish there for GBJPY. No, I do sometimes use fibs for extra confluence. But I find out that normally the levels that I look to trade from normally anyway do align with fib levels, anywhere from the 0.382 all the way down to this the 78.6. So it just kind of lines up anyway. So I feel like, so it's not like I have to take a trade from a fib level, but the levels that I do look to trade from normally do line up with the fib levels anyway. So again, you see this level of resistance here. If I probably do get a fib from the top of that to the bottom, it probably does line up with a fib level anyway. So you can see it's got the 0.618 just above it. So again, it kind of lines up anyway. So I find out I don't really use fibs that much, but it kind of just lines up anyway for the levels that I look to trade. So it's not something that I go to straight away, but it's something that I do sometimes factor in when looking at fibs anyway. But I normally just stick with my key levels, wait for the price action, see what happens there, looking at multi-time frames, and see you can get those good nice swing trades, looking from one low to another or one high to another. Okay, Rosa, how is that type of trading getting along for you? You enjoying it? Because again, it's a lot different from the typical retail sort of way to trade. Looking at those patterns is a lot different, isn't it? Again, USD CAD starting to look a little bit bearish, so you can get the next leg to the downside. GBCHF, we were looking at earlier, it's looking like we're getting a bit more of a bullish reaction at that support. Again, it looks like we might actually break back above that trend line. Like I did say, if we were to get above that resistance there for GBCHF, it probably is lining up for another move back into that resistance up there. Again, really key level of the H4 time frame. So if I jump to the H4, as you can see, really key support, now turn resistance. So if I do feel if we clear this resistance here in the market, there is a good possibility that GBCHF wants to have another swing to the upside, potentially forming a higher low and seeing another move back into 1.28, which is that key resistance there in the market. But right now, the candle hasn't closed yet, still got 20 minutes left. But again, still need to break through that. Trend lines are very subjective, so not going to take that too much as gospel right now, but could potentially still roll over or could shoot up and go and test that resistance again for a fifth time. But we are seeing some more conviction to the downside from that level, so I think my bias is still to the downside for GBCHF unless we're to clear that resistance. But again, you can see what happens with this current candles, looking very bullish right now, dropping down to the 30-minute as well, looking very bullish there as well, showing that it's failing to take out that previous low. Did create some new lows though with those wicks, but however it did fail to break through and get close, so that is another important thing to factor in there. But nonetheless, going to see how that candle closes, because again, really important to see how they close, because at one point it could be looking bullish and by the 20 minutes later when it closes, it could actually be a bearish candle, so important to wait for those candle closures. Again, see if you can get another swing to the downside for USD CAD. Seem nice bearish candles here, but again, important technical aspect to take out is that trend line and see if we can get that continuation to the downside back to these lows here, maybe even the lower low at that point, because again, if you look at the daily time frame for USD CAD, we got a very strong close to the downside there, so the momentum is very much to the downside, and we haven't really seen too much of a bullish reaction, so could see another push to the downside after that. But nonetheless, looking to get another push to the downside for USD CAD. Yeah, it does focus on manipulation, liquidity. You know, a lot of wicks, false breakouts. So it's like this sort of price action here in the market. Nice resistance here, big wick above, pull back down. You know, taking out stop losses, grabbing liquidity, and then moving to the downside after that. So again, it's a lot more complicated, but again, from my preference, I like keeping things simple. So again, not too overthinking it, because sometimes overthinking could actually mess up your trading. But again, if you understand it and it works for you, it works for you, and it might actually make you take better trades and less of the worst trades, of the losing trades. So if it does work for you, again, that is fantastic. Again, GJ pushing to the upside very impulsively right now. So again, coming back into that 4-hourly resistance. Again, a lot of people would have probably placed some shorts here because there's wicks here, but again, price action is still very bullish here, and it is pushing into that 4-hourly resistance. So gonna see what happens there, because GJ, again, not too sure, because if you just zoom out and see the bigger picture of GBJPY, as you can see, it looks like we are getting higher lows in the market and higher highs. Again, we all know that GBJPY has been in that massive bullish trend for the past couple months, not a couple, a few months now, few weeks to the upside. And as you can see, if I'm just mapping out these higher highs here in the market, so again, from a swing trader's point of view, I like knowing where the structure is of the market and where we could potentially be heading next. So if this potentially is our higher low, because we did break through the trend line here in the market, again, connecting those lows here, as you can see, we did break below, but then we're broken back above right now. So is that just a fake out, creating that higher low? And then if we do clear this area here in the market, that could be the start of something much bigger, back to these highs, giving us a new high, or at least tapping back into that same high there in the market, that equal high. So potentially, looking at the bigger picture, that could be happening for GBJPY if this was just a fake out, giving us the low high. Because as you can see, the important thing to notice is whether we're getting lower lows or higher lows, and it looks like we're still keeping that higher low kind of pattern going. And if we do clear that, it might give us the kick we need to come back to these highs, which again could open up some nice potential shorts, potential long, sorry, to the upside, looking for those swings in the market. So that could be a potential idea for GJ there. But again, it's important to see what happens in this region here, how price reacts to it, because right now it's very bullish here, and we're probably going to see a bit of a bearish reaction coming to that level there. And you see GPUSD is actually very bullish as well. So again, like I said before, GPUSD and GBJPY move very similar, and you see we've cleared that resistance, we've cleared that trend line. So it definitely looks like prices want to give us another push to the upside for GPUSD, sorry, back into this resistance here in the market. So again, I was expecting price to tap into that before coming down, so it looks like we are going to go and tap into that now. Might break above it depending how bullish it is, because we are pushing quite impulsively. But I'm expecting price probably now, after breaking through that trend line there, to come and test around 1.39400, which is that resistance up there. So GBJPY and GBUSD are looking quite bullish now. And again, seeing if we can get that break of that trend line there for USD CAD to see that move back down into 1.23651 for my shorts on USD CAD. And again, guys, Still got another 12 minutes left of the live stream, so if you want some more analysis on any pairs, make sure you just drop it in the live chat and I'll give you some analysis on those pairs. Or if you need trades, let me know. Again, we'll take a look, see how they're going. Okay, so it's just gone 12 p.m. so going to look to end the live stream shortly. But like normal, we're going to do a quick rundown on some of the pairs that looked at before, see how they're getting on, and also take a look at my current trade as well. So let's start with Aud USD. So you can see with this one had a bit of a bullish reaction there. Again, we haven't quite come down to that support, can still roll over to go and test that area, see if price is going to respect it, and if it does, it might see another push up. However, break through it, like I said before, continuation back down to the second target for Aud USD, which is around 0.77100. So if price does go and break through that level, anticipating price coming back down to this area here, hold it, we could be seeing another reaction back to the upside. We've seen really slight bullish reaction there, but still expecting price to roll over to come test this area here around 0.77600. GPUSD, again, like I said, looking very, very bullish before, breaking through that support and that resistance. So I do think price can have a slight retracement off that impulse, but probably going to come and test this area up there. As you can see, really nice resistance here and previous support there, tested numerous times before eventually having that big fall off to the downside there. I think that's the next target for GPUSD to come and test that area. Whether we break through it or not, again, not too sure. We'll look at price action in that area, see what's happening. But GPUSD, we are looking quite bullish there, and I'm expecting price to continue to go and test this level, which is around 1.39400, 450 give or take. So expecting to see another push to the upside for GPUSD back into that area, and then if we hold, again, probably another bearish reaction, break above, might see price push back into 1.4 depending how bullish price is. Looking at EURUSD, again, we had that reaction out that trend line. Like I did say to you guys earlier, we're coming back into that trend line, had a strong close into that. Again, looking at those lows there, we'll probably likely to have another bullish reaction. We did tap into this strong level here on the H4 though. So as you can see, 1.21, the key level there in the market. Retested it as resistance a while back, and we had this big sell-off to the downside. So now we're testing that area for the first time again since their last big push to the downside. I'm still expecting to see a bearish reaction, but we do need to take out this trend line for us to really take off to the downside and potentially tapping back into these areas here, or maybe even further, because I still think EURUSD is due a bit of a pullback. But again, that key technical factor, the trend line needs to break for us to really get that kick to the downside for Euro USD. And you can see we've already had that bit of a bullish reaction at that same level there. USD JPY, again, starting to look quite bearish now, again tapping into that key level there on the H4 time frame. If we just clear this up for a second here, again, like I said to you guys earlier, key level on the H4, test it as support once, test it as support again, big reaction to the upside, actually tapping into 111 on the dot there. So really key level there in the market, a lot of weight behind it. As I said on a weekly analysis, if we do manage to hold this resistance, we could see another sell-off to the downside for USD JPY. And diving onto the hourly time frames, as you can see, we've already had a bit of a bearish reaction there. Looking at the half an hour, again, another bearish reaction. I did say it would be nice to see a break of this trend line and then see price pull back, show some rejection, and then see some nice sell-offs to the downside. As you can see, last time we did test it as resistance, we held some consolidation quite nicely, and then we had this big sell-off to the downside, very impulsive leg to the downside, and we could be seeing maybe another similar reaction, very impulsive candles to the downside, if we do keep up this rejection and break through that trend line. So that is definitely something to factor in. We are poking our nose through that trend line there, but again, we work on candle closures, not when the candle's open. This is just a new form candle right now. Still got another 25 minutes on the half an hour to close, but if you do see some break, retest, look for those continuations to the downside, because at that point it probably does mean that we are rejecting that level there on that half an hour, that key level on the 4 hourly, and then we could be seeing a nice fall to the downside. Looking at USD CHF, again, we've had that continuation to the downside. Like I said to you guys earlier, looking at the higher time frames, my bias is still very much to the downside, back into this daily zone of well, it's got a bit of a range to it, so between 0.90100 and 0.90600. So this is a very key level on the daily. If I just jump to the daily, so you guys real quick, As you can see, really nice support there, tested numerous times, resistance. And I think that's the zone price is wanting to come and test for USD CHF. So that is the target for this area. We did break below, we tested that resistance, and I think we're going to slowly leak our way, roll our way over to go and test that area. And as you can see, we've had another kick to the downside here on the hourly, breaking through that counter trend line. I can see first, second test there, broken through it, and we're seeing some real bearish intent there to the downside of those impulsive candles. So likely to see a bit of retracement, but expecting the market to sell off again, give us some new lows below that, another push, and eventually getting us to down this area here, which we still got around another 70 to 80 pips to the downside for UCHF is what I'm favoring. And looking at my current trade, USD CAD in some shorts here, looking for a move back down to these lows, 1.23651. So again, if I zoom out to the 4 hourly time frame, you can see here's our previous swing low in the market, right down to that wick there. I can see this our previous high, new low. This looks like potentially our new high, and expecting to see a new low or at least equal lows at that wick down there. So currently in some shorts there, looking for a move to the downside. You can see we get a nice push to the lows. We've had a break below that trend line, a nice close, but again, want to see price kind of kick off from that trend line now after that break, and see if we can get another bearish candle after that. But nonetheless, still holding on to those shorts, looking to see if we can get a move back down into this area here in the market. So yeah, I'll take a look at Euro CHF now. Okay, so Euro CHF, yeah, 70U, I haven't traded this pair in a very long time as well. I find it to be very, very corrective, very choppy, so I don't really see some good setups. Looking from a swing trading point of view, maybe day traders or intraday traders can take advantage of this pair a little bit more, but for my terms, not really. I'll start on the daily for this one. Actually, we zoom out. Okay, so price overall in a bearish trend here, so we are taking those highs out, so it could be the start of a bullish trend. Recently we've had this big kickoff to the upside. This looks to be very, very corrective, so it looks like we are retracing to the downside here, forming those lower highs in the market, as you can see. So got a lower high there, pushing to the downside. It looks like we've just had about taken out that high there, but it looks like it to be a bit of a false break since we come to the straight to the downside very, very sharply. Looking at the hourly time frame as well, so we have a nice little trend line here. Looks like we've pushed into that, did close below, but only closed back above, so not overly the strongest break of the trend line. Looks like I have another bounce, but we are seeing some real strength to the downside. So I can see there were some good shorts here around this level here in the market, because we did spike above, come back, so a bit of a head and shoulder kind of formation, shoulder, head, shoulder, and then we had that big push to the downside. So I can see some nice shorting from that area, a nice tank to the downside. Again, I feel like because we're still correctly moving to the downside, a break of that trend line from a 4-hourly perspective could actually take us a lot further to the downside and see potentially price back at these lows here again. And if you just follow the structure previously, you can see how that big push, corrective, big push, corrective, big push, now potentially corrective, another big push. So that could be what's happening for Euro CHF for a bigger swing to the downside back into these lows. But right now looks like we're having a little bit of a bounce to that trend line. Might see price maybe push 50% of the way, since we did fail to take out those highs there, and then probably roll over again. And if you retest, hold that trend line, could be a nice area to look for those shorts, giving us a bigger move to the downside. Again, first target will probably be around this area here, then probably that area down there, and then that area down there. So Euro CHF bias is to the downside, looking at what I've just looked at right now. As long as we hold this high here as our previous high, showing resistance, and I do think we'll roll over to the downside, give us some new lows down there. Yeah, it is simple. I mean, it's not too complicated. I mean, it's only complicated if you make it complicated, really. Again, just looking at those key levels, see how they interact, any trend line breaks, looking at the structure, using kind of multi-time frame analysis, and hey presto, you've got some good analysis in the markets there, really. So yeah, looking at the Euro CHF, potentially roll over to the downside. If we were to get back above this area, it probably means that price is still going to maintain respect to that trend line and probably give us some new highs. At that point, we could see price push on into this area here, which is where we had that big dump to the downside, which is around 1.10850. So clear those highs there. That's probably the next target there in the market. So that's probably what I'm favoring for USDTF. But again, like I said, I don't normally trade this pair. Haven't looked at it in a long time, so not too familiar with the movements of it. But looking at that analysis that I just had now, potentially if we do break to the downside again after this retracement, that's probably target 1, target 2 down there. Take out those highs, that's where I expect price to go. So hope that analysis helped on that pair. Yeah, I actually do have a video on how to draw key levels in the markets. I'll put a link to that in the chat right now. But yeah, I've already got a video to that. So if you look at that, see how it gets on, if it does help. If it doesn't, drop a comment below and I'll try and give you some extra advice. But yeah, I'll put that the URL to that video in the chat in a second. But yeah, like I said before, currently in that USD CAD short, so you can get a nice sell off to the downside, back to around 1.23651, which is those lows there, potentially even lower, but not really looking to hold into the trade for too long. Already had the bulk of the move, so looking to see if we can get that one last push to the downside for USD CAD to around 1.23651. So that's what I'm looking for. Again, got a live stream again exactly same time tomorrow. Make sure you're there for that and don't miss out, from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. GMT time. So in the morning, make sure you don't miss out on that. I'll probably still be in this USD CAD short position, so we'll give you some updates and see how this trade is going for that move to the downside. But yeah, this is the end of the live stream. Thanks again for everyone for watching. Means a lot. If you haven't already, make sure you hit the subscribe button if you want some more content, and also drop a like if you enjoyed the video. But thanks again for watching, guys. Until the next one, I will see you guys later.
go.